Hello and welcome to NOV Live International. I'm Michael Gaines, host of the podcast NOV Today, and glad you are joining us today for another conversation this week where we are talking to experts around the industry on technology and innovations in this space. So on today's conversation, we're going to be talking about NOV's MAX Platform, and going to be talking with two gentlemen in just a moment, Carl Fehres and Tim Williamson. And they're going to be shedding some light and giving us additional insight on data, how we view data, and a little bit of history into how NOV got into the space. But before we do that, we're going to head over to NOV's social media manager, Shelby Dumaine, to talk about how we'd love to engage with people during this episode. So, hey, Shelby.
Hi, good morning, Michael. The best thing about being live right now and being out here on the social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, is that we get to connect with you at home, our audience. So at any point, if you have a question for our experts, go ahead and comment it below the video. Again, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, and we're going to get to as many of the questions as possible. I'm on here in the comments live now, looking at as many of them coming in. So I look forward to seeing your questions.
Okay, great. Thanks, Shelby. So we know that when you look around the industry, and it doesn't take long to hear the word data, and for that to pop up, it's a word that's used quite a bit. However, in looking at how NOV approaches this space, there's some really interesting history and insights as to how we look at that particular word and how we apply it to the industry. So I'd like to introduce two gentlemen that mentioned at the top of the program, Carl Fehres, who is the Vice President of Engineering Technology, and also Tim Williamson, who's the Director of Data Governance. So glad you guys are here. Carl, I'll start out with you. Wanted to start out, of course, the title of today's program is talking about the MAX platform. So maybe first off, can you help us understand what is the MAX platform?
Yeah. Well, so the MAX system is really, it's an IoT software stack and infrastructure. And we built it. We started building it 5 years ago to support the business and building new digital products and services. And so as an OEM, we make a lot of equipment. That equipment makes a lot of data. So it's connected to sensors, connected to control systems that we build that control the equipment. So all of that generates data, and we weren't doing a really good job before of kind of aggregating it together and making more value beyond the control of equipment. And so 5 years ago, we started down this journey, and we essentially, as part of this process, we built a system that enabled us to get a hold of the data better, to manage it, to bring it in live into our infrastructure, and then to build new products and services built on just the data itself and intelligence.
Yeah. So, and you briefly mentioned at the beginning, you said, that obviously we had been working on it for a while, but that it was something that we wanted to do as an OEM. Can you talk about, and so for those that aren't familiar, so the original equipment manufacturer, can you talk about why that's important, especially as you're looking at, using the data, in supporting our customers that way?
Well, so again, when we started, the first thing that was really obvious to us is we needed to build condition monitoring technologies for our equipment. As an OEM, it's our responsibility to make sure that our equipment lasts the longest, that we give insights into the health of that equipment, so there's no avoidable but unexpected mishaps with the equipment. And so that was one of the key things that we focused on early on. We've continued to invest time and resources to advance those technologies. And so we got RigSentry, GoConnect products that are really focused on condition monitoring. As an OEM, we felt that it was our responsibility to bring those to market. And also it makes our equipment stand out against everybody else's. If your equipment lasts longer because you're maintaining it properly and things are going as they should, then you're going to come back and buy equipment from us. So.
Yeah. So when you look at how we've been able to approach a space, for instance, you mentioned VOP Condition Monitoring. I know that was one of the early spaces that we really started looking in. For those that aren't familiar, can you give a little bit of a background and history into how we approached that particular problem set and how we've moved forward in that area?
Yeah. So when we started, again, 5 years ago, we started with a very, very small team, and we had a goal of trying to figure this space out. I'm a mechanical engineer, and so that's my background. I came from actually the product engineering side of things. We went to try and tackle the biggest problem we could find. So we asked a lot of the customers, we asked a lot of our internal engineering teams that we knew what that problem might be, and they said, hands down, it was the BOP. The BOP is, by far the most critical safety system out there, and so we had customers throwing data at us, which was really exciting. And we hired our first data scientist 5 years ago. I didn't know what a data scientist was before then. I didn't know how expensive or tough to find they are, but and kind of a new category of analytics person. And we took all this data and a lot of subject matter expertise. These guys basically lived at the Pressure Control Group's engineering location for the better part of 6 months. But within the first 4 or 5 months, we had our first predictive algorithm that was running that could predict failure of BOP regulator valves with a event horizon of 2 to 3 weeks. And that was really exciting. So that was when we knew we were onto something. We started the program. When we first started the program, the CIO at the time, he told me, he says, don't make this an IT project. Make this a project that's going to create value so that it's longstanding, create value for the company, focus on that value. Don't focus on necessarily the IT side. So we have to do both, of course. But if you don't look at the value side of it first, then you're going to go down, the death of an IT project that's got a lot of great functionality but no value. So yeah, so it was a great story, and we really started interacting with the business from day one.
Right. Yeah. So I know that part of that approach is really looking at how you handle, manage, think about, and secure that data. And of course, part of that process includes the how we look at that as an organization. So Tim, I know that's your 9 to 5 is really thinking about that. So I wanted to bring you in to help us maybe set the stage. How do you look at the way that we look at data governance, security? How do you approach that?
Well, I'll say, Michael, when I hired on this job about 9 months ago, that was really the first question that I started to tackle was, what is data governance? Why is it important? And so as going through that thought process, doing a lot of research, talking to a lot of folks, looking out at what our industry and other industries do, we basically began to focus on 3 main areas. And one area was data quality. Another area was data security. And the third area was data accessibility. Excuse me. And so sort of breaking those areas down, we said what's fundamentally important to our customers is that they can trust us with the data that we collect from the equipment that they're running. We take the position that the data that we receive, we are stewards of. We don't own it. We do use it in some cases with with agreements with our customers, but we make sure that we protect it and make it available back to the customer first and foremost. So from a security standpoint, we have adopted an information security management system that's ISO 27001 compliant, which basically just means that it's an outside standard, an industry recognized standard for companies that provide data and data services. Most of your major cloud service providers are ISO 27001 certified, and so are we. And basically, that just means we manage customers' data with a risk mindset. We look at what potential risks are out there to our customers' data, to unauthorized disclosure or integrity, and we take actions to proactively manage that. We also talk about quality. We talk about data quality. We look at how do we know the data that we're receiving back is telling us an accurate story. And so we begun the process of really taking the first steps into scrubbing the data and understanding it. It's great to have data, but as Carl will tell you, anybody else will tell you, if that data is wrong and you start making decisions on data that maybe doesn't match reality, you could actually put yourself in kind of a worse position than if you weren't using the data at all and just using gut intuition. And so data quality is a really important piece of that as well. And then finally, accessibility, making sure that the right people have access to the right data so that we can provide value to our customers.
So, I know that in approaching this particular area, it can potentially be a little bit daunting, but I have a little bit of insight into your background and how you approach that. So for those that aren't familiar, do you mind giving a little bit of insight into your background and how you came to this space here?
Sure. So I've been with NOV since 2013. Before that, I was an active duty submarine officer in the United States Navy. And so I've been in either an operational or heavy equipment environment my entire career. And so I moved through, starting in 2013, I started with a pressure control group, blowout preventers, drilling blowout preventers. And this was during the peak. And so we were building a lot, we were shipping a lot, and I learned a lot. And so I was in the project and program management space there for a while. And then I moved over into the manufacturing quality side for that product line as well. So for about 18 months, I was the quality manager over that product line. And then my next role was actually running a couple of manufacturing facilities in our completion and production solutions segment. And one of the things that became readily apparent to me was that the more access I had to good data about how the manufacturing processes were running, the more effective we could be. And so we spent a lot of time and effort really focusing on data access and data quality and data visualization in manufacturing. And my team was really able to take that and use it very effectively to move our on-time performance from, I think we were in the high teens when I got there. And over the course of about 18 months, we moved on-time performance into the 90% range out of those facilities. And that was largely, clearly it was the team who did it, but the tool that they had was access to the data, and in a way that was meaningful and useful, and in a way that was, clean. And I don't want to use the term policed because that kind of gives the wrong impression, but you understand what I mean, right? Yeah. We made sure that it was good, and then we used it, and it really helped us from an operational efficiency standpoint. And that's the same kind of, so seeing that and recognizing that those same kinds of operational efficiencies can be gained by our customers when we take the data domain of this connected product data or IoT data. If we can serve it up in the same way and make sure that it's secure and of good quality, our customers should be able to recognize those benefits as well, which means we win, they win, and the industry wins.
Right. So, and that I think that's a really good segue actually to some of the questions that we have coming in now. So we're going to go ahead and pull Shelby in. Shelby, what do you have for us?
Hi, Michael. So Billy from LinkedIn was wondering, is the data collected during drilling, completion, or both?
Okay.
Yeah.
So Carl, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, and we're collecting data from both aspects today. We do that very actively for both drilling and completions.
Cool.
Yeah, we got a lot of equipment out there.
Yeah.
And then, so John also on LinkedIn was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the back-end support for Max.
Back-end support. So we've got 24/7 support for the core infrastructure for all the services. We're actually running in one of the public clouds, and we've got redundancy everywhere as well. So the system is it's fundamental. 24/7 support and 24/7 uptime is very fundamental for the industry, and so the platform itself, the system and the software and the technology stack. So each of the application owners themselves, they've got support for their own applications. So if you're a GoConnect customer, RigSentry customer, then they've got support levels too.
Great. And then another one we got is, can you speak a little bit to the competitive advantage that Max has or how it compares to our competitors?
Yeah, probably at long length, I think. But one of the things, well, I'll keep this short. One of the things I'm proud of is the Edge platform that we have. So I think both the Edge system and also the front end visualization, the Access portal itself is quite a technology. And so the Edge system itself, we've had to develop over the course of many years to connect to all the various NOV control systems. And so the result of that really is that we became really quite good at handling communication protocols. And so we support over 25 industrial protocols today, which means we can talk to pretty much anything. And if we can't talk to it right now, then within a relatively short amount of time, we can build a connector to talk to anything. So it's really a core competence. The Edge platform itself, we could talk about for a long time, but I think that we're ahead of anybody I've seen in that space and in the areas that are important for what we're trying to deliver. So not all areas, but the ones that are important. And then the access portal itself is the visualization component. And so that's something that we've worked very hard on for the last 4 years. It's very flexible, it's very robust. And we've got all the NOV engineering teams or software development teams that are building applications now on that platform together, which means we've got tremendous velocity and standardization and really sharing of code and components, which is important. So yeah.
Okay. I think we had another question. I've seen a couple rolling in as well. Do you have one for us, Shelby?
I do. So James on LinkedIn is wondering if there's a certain type of data that y'all found has the most value.
That's interesting.
That's a really interesting question. And it's interesting for a couple of reasons. Sometimes the data that you get that you think will be very valuable is, and sometimes it's not. But what we found, I think, is that where the real value proposition with data for us lies is in the fact that we can begin to connect the dots because of our footprint in the industry, because of the different kinds of equipment that we make and that talk to each other and the control systems that we deliver and the data that comes from those things. Being able to connect pieces that may not be directly related together begins to create a much more interesting picture and potentially develop new insights into how you operate your equipment. And so we think there's a lot of value in connecting it together in ways that maybe hasn't been done before. Hopefully that answered that question.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to have a quick follow-up to, and maybe to both of you as well. So, when you're looking at the space of data, I'm curious to some of the feedback or major challenges that we've observed historically, as the prevalence of data has increased and become more of a norm. I know that I know from being in the product line years ago that the initial challenges were, man, we've got all of this data. What do I do with these terabytes and petabytes of collected data? What are some of the challenges, just high level, that we've seen initially, and how we've sort of viewed that moving forward?
So I'll try a short one, and then I know Tim can expand on this. But we relate this really to data quality, and data quality doesn't necessarily mean bad data, but sometimes just data that's not accessible. And so what I mean by that is that there's no tag naming convention in the industry, and so you got WITS-ML, which is great for drilling, those 300 parameters for drilling. But really, what we've seen across the board is in control systems and in other areas of completions and production, there are no standardizations of names. We see things like the timestamp itself is not always unified on the same beat, and so when you start combining this data together, all those things really start coming up. When you can move from rig to rig, it's a challenge because all the tag names are different. And so you've got to be able to handle that stuff gracefully in the core system and the core solution that you're providing. And so those are some of the things that we've learned along the way, because it is complicated. We're going after trying to make this really easier for our core product teams and our customer. And the only way to do that is to take some of these hard, complex problems and put them in the core solution and allow the end user to manage and navigate those things gracefully and at scale. And so, putting a lot of those things in the core technology, data quality that Tim's talking about as well, these are kind of fundamental. So, and these are things that, again, we wouldn't have imagined when we started 5 years ago. But as you go through the journey of aggregating data from multiple sources, control systems, and digital acquisition and sensor systems, then it becomes very apparent that that's job one. I think this is a fair estimate of resource. Our data scientists and the people that work with them, the data team basically that preps data for them, they spend roughly 70% of their time prepping data so they can run calculations. And so the goal is clearly, if you can get rid of a large portion of that amount of time that they're used just to prep the data for the analytic to run, then it's a big success. So it's complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Tim, any thoughts?
It's collecting the data is a lot easier than making sense of it. And I think that's one of the things that we've really come to the conclusion on. And so what Carl's talking about a lot with my role and what we're looking at with governance is how do we automate those upfront processes so that from the point of collection through the entire lineage of how that data travels and is manipulated and calculated throughout the process until it lands in the hands of either a data scientist or a customer, how do we ensure that all along the way we have not just good quality but appropriate context? We really understand what we're looking at, because like Carl said, the tag naming convention for data in the industry it's very bespoke. And so sometimes you might be looking at one piece of data and thinking you're looking at one thing when you're really looking at something else. And so organizing that, wrangling it, engineering those pipelines, all of that is a major focus of ours to really make this efficient and the data very useful in an easy way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, it looks like we have one more question as we get ready to wrap up this segment. Shelby, go ahead.
Yeah, so we had one more question. This again came from LinkedIn, and they're wondering who do they need to contact to learn if their equipment can provide data, or if you can get data from their equipment.
Well, I think I can answer that one. It looks like I've got two guys sitting sitting right in front of me who can help me with that. But I wanted to let you guys answer that question, but it's almost like they were reading my mind. So if you have questions or want to know more about how the Max platform can help you in your operations, you can just quite simply send an email either to carl.fehres@nov.com, or you can send it to timothy.williamson@nov.com. And I'm sure either one of these guys would be happy to talk with you more about data and all of its glory, especially as we look into operations and assisting you there. So this has been really interesting, very insightful, because I know it's a constantly evolving space, and I know that both of you guys are consistently staying on top of it. So appreciate you carving out some time today to talk with us about NOV's Max Industrial Platform. So Carl, Tim, thanks for the time.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
So we thank you for joining us on this session of NOV Live International. We'll be back in about 2 hours or so, a little less, and we will be continuing our conversations throughout the week on technology and innovations in the energy space, and look forward to seeing you soon. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.